Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos podcast. This is a show that we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a prepared individual and a survivalist in today's day and age. Today, we are episode 22, but actually episode 2, where we are on both YouTube platform and obviously the audio portion is on the same streaming apps that you've been using now. So if you are watching this, you get to see my face. You get to see Jamie Franks. Jamie Franks, welcome back to the show. I know, right? At least we have one semi-good-looking person on here. I'll let the audience decide who that is. But Jamie, welcome back to the show and the new way, the new platform, if you will.
Yeah, interesting. This is my first foray into doing this way.
Yeah. Obviously, the last episode that we had was kind of unorthodox, based off of what we've been doing up until now. But
let's keep religion out of it, okay?
Right. No, definitely can't use that word. But I think it went pretty well. I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but Sean owns the Firearm Radio Network, and there is a bunch of different podcasts on there. And I asked him, I said, I wondered, I'm like, do you listen to other people's? And he had a pretty good answer to that, and, gave some insight as far as him providing feedback. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't had any feedback, so hoping it hasn't been just a rambling, incoherent podcast for the last 21 weeks. So, but here we are, and we've got a pretty fun show today. I'm excited for this one. It's definitely going to be interesting, especially after the text message that you sent me with that article. I was just like, oh, all right. Well, I guess we're going to kind of throw that in there. But, I know that you had a busy morning. You were swimming with the sharks. Were you?
Literally. I got up early at about 4:45 this morning when diving. So
you didn't make any highlight reels for Shark Week, right?
Not that I'm aware of, okay. But we did see some sharks this morning. Those were it's actually.
What did you see?
Depending on who you ask what they're called, but they're people call them either taupe sharks or soup fin sharks. But their body shape and everything does resemble a great white, and but it's just a little bit smaller. I mean, the one we saw today was probably a little smaller than me, but the one I saw about a week ago or 2 weeks ago was about my size. Actually just earlier this week, there was a sighting just a couple of miles away from the area we were diving today where somebody did have a juvenile great white sighting. That doesn't really make me feel, just knowing that it's a juvenile doesn't make me feel a whole lot better, because I don't know how that goes with sharks, but I was always told that, like with venomous snakes, it's worse to encounter one that's a juvenile because they haven't regulated their amount of venom or whatever. So right. Like if you get bit by a juvenile venomous snake, it's actually worse than if you get bit by a bigger one. So I don't know how that plays into the shark world. It's just coincidental that it's Shark Week on Discovery Channel, and like all of a sudden, just like in the last week, there's been tons more shark sightings in San Diego. So interesting.
Yeah, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but Shark Week has officially jumped the shark. And I'm hoping there's some people out there that'll hopefully get that reference. But I used to love it, man. I used to love this week every year because Shark Week was just a great week of amazing shows. And now it is literally ominous music and complete scripted what's going to happen in between the next ominous music and commercial break, and then they come back and everything is fine.
Well, and number one, Shark Week hasn't recently jumped a shark. Like, I was kind of over Shark Week when I was like 17. And it's one of those things that for some reason, some TV executive still thinks people are interested. I don't really think people are that much, but especially with Shark Week, like all the programming, like you said, it's just so canned and so cheesy. And they do that thing where, it's an hour-long show, so an hour-long show is typically about 42 to 43 minutes with commercials, and then they do that thing where it's like the last 5 minutes before the commercial break, it's like, when we come back, we're gonna see which shark would win in a fight. And then
Right.
when they come back, they spend the first 5 minutes after the break going, before the break, we talked about blah, 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 blah. And so
Yeah.
it's all you end up with about 15 minutes of programming that's not really that good anyway. So,
Yeah.
but they used to show like all the USS Indianapolis stuff. They would show like on Shark
Right.
Week and that kind of stuff, which is interesting. But then it went to this computer animated who would win, but if 1,000 great white sharks took on a megalodon, who would win? And it's this computer generated things that's not even very interesting. So
it's just gotten so bad, and every scenario, it's like the divers talking and they got the weird sounding, like they have comms down in the water and they're like, what are you seeing up there, Jimmy? Oh my God, it's a frenzy. Oh my God. And then it's dun, dun, dun. And they go to commercial and then they come back and it's just like, wow, that was crazy down there. There were sharks in the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course there were. Go back to that, the comment that you made when I put a post up about taking a picture of the ocean. Like, yeah, you reach down, put it in. Is there salt in it? Yeah, there's sharks in the water. Great.
The water tastes salty. There are sharks in the water.
Right. So it's gotten so bad. And I try to watch it. I tried a couple of times this week and it's just, I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm going to just go catch reruns of The Sopranos. So
it's funny you say that because I've been rewatching Deadwood. I started back at season 1, episode 1 of Deadwood, and that's so good.
It was a really good show. And so funny enough is I did not watch it the first time around. So I started watching it, which is now my first time. I stopped and I'm going to have to go back and finish it. But then there was that one. And then there was Boardwalk Empire, which was another one that I did not watch originally.
I didn't really love Boardwalk Empire. I was Sopranos super fan number 1 back in the day. Now
good.
I have to give it about 5 years, and about every 5 years I'll go back and rewatch the whole series. I have to give it enough time to like forget the little details and stuff, so it's interesting again. But I haven't watched Deadwood. I think the last time I watched Deadwood was when I was in Afghanistan. The last time I was in Afghanistan was 2013. Okay. So it's probably been about 10 years since I've watched Deadwood. It's really good though.
Yeah.
I'm watching it again.
I mean, I forgot how good The Sopranos was, and I haven't watched it since it originally aired. So this is my first time rewatching it. It's so funny. Like there's such great comedy in that. There is times where I'm just like, all right, enough with the constant yelling at each other, like between Carmela and Tony all the time, just arguing all the time. The mother, as much as I loved her, I remember watching, I'm like, okay, what season does she die in? Because I kind of want to skip to that. But just some of those characters like Paulie Walnuts and Sylvia, like you just like.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's really, this is something that I think she should be proud of because I think it's a trademark of a really good actress, because the actress that plays Janice, Tony's sister, if I ever saw her on the street, I would spit in her face because I hated her so much on The Sopranos. But I suppose that's because she's just a really good actress, and man, I hated her. But
she was rough.
Yeah, but like I used to be a big Howard Stern fan also. I would listen to Howard Stern every day, and Howard Stern always wanted to interview Tony Soprano. He did not want to interview James Gandolfini. He wanted Gandolfini to come into the studio but be Tony, and he wanted to interview Tony, and they never made that happen. And we lost Gandolfini unfortunately, but that would have been awesome.
He was so good. He was really good. And what I'm probably going to do after I finish it, I will go back and watch the movie Many Saints of Newark.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot that didn't really connect when I watched that movie when it first came out, because it had been so long since I watched The Sopranos, but I am going to do that.
If you're really a Sopranos fan, they did that movie really well because they put a lot of little Easter eggs in it that are callbacks to like stories that Tony told from his childhood, or that the times when Tony is like in with Dr. Melfi and they flash back to his childhood. A lot of the stuff in the movie expands on those things that they flashed back to and those like stories that he told and stuff. So it's good, and they really made it for the fans. But yeah, it'll be better to watch it with all that stuff fresh in your mind.
Yeah, I will definitely going to watch that. I think I'm on season 5 right now. So they just brought in, obviously they're wrapping it up. They just brought in Steve Buscemi's
Yeah, Blendetto.
character and Blendetto and this is when Johnny Sacks takes over. Carmine, I think, just passed away. So it's just such a great. It's a great episode.
Yeah.
And funny enough is I just saw this. And damn, I can't remember the Anthony Jr. I can't remember his real name. And Jamie Lynn Sigler, they have a podcast right now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they do. So one of those, I'm going to end up watching those or listening to one of them. I think they're doing both audio and video. So I'm going to check that out and see what they have on there. But I believe there's been a couple of people that have passed since, actors that were on the show.
Yeah, Paulie passed.
Yeah, he did.
What's his name? The guy that Big Pussy. He passed.
He did.
I believe so. Yeah. And
obviously James
Tony,
yeah.
Uncle Junior. The Tony's mom. They actually had to kill her on the show because she passed away unexpectedly. During when they were filming. But yeah.
Yeah. God, it was such a good show.
Yeah.
Anyway. And I don't even know. Oh, that's right. We got onto The Sopranos because we got off of Shark Week, and we got on Shark Week because you went diving this morning.
Yep.
So, and I got to look in the book. Is there a how to survive a shark attack scenario?
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
There is some scuba stuff in there, but it's a little dumb. But
it is a little dumb. So, and I got to say, so today's episode is all about this book that I've referenced. I think I referenced in the last show, and it's a book that I was given way back when I was a little bit younger from an ex, and it's the Worst Case Scenario Survival Handbook. Oh, you can see mine, can't see. There it is. So this is a hard copy that obviously is a lot bigger than the original paperback that I had. I did give it out to all of the state moderators and the HQ admins for ZERT as kind of just a gift, something to read, something to enjoy. It was, I don't know when it was first published, but obviously it's written by Josh Piven and David Borgenicht. Just butcher that right away. But it's a fun read. Do I think that it is a survival handbook? No, I don't. But there's some things in there. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out. Like what we're going to talk about today is a perfect example because we're going to talk about basically land navigation without the use of a GPS. And like in this book, it's 3 pages, and I'm as a person that's
right.
Pretty much an expert on land navigation. There's more than 3 pages that you need to know. But
and so that and I definitely would love to find out if there is a more in-depth version of this book. I would also like to ask the question: where are they coming up with this? I mean, is this just a basic cliff notes to it? And why would you? Again, I don't know the purpose of this book. I don't know if it's made to just be a fun read and like one of those coffee table books to pull out when you have a dinner party, if those are still a thing. And you're like, what would you do in this scenario? But there were a couple in there that I wanted to kind of look at. What's funny is for this one, how to navigate without GPS, it was like you said, 3 pages. But I think the how to land a plane was a lot more in depth, which I don't know. I mean, I think I'd want to know more about how to navigate without GPS than I want to know how to fly a plane. I don't know. That's a toss up. That's a toss up.
And there's another version of these books. It's kind of the same thing, but kind of different. It's like I think they were written by a former Navy SEAL or something. But there's 2 of them. There's 2 volumes. It's like called I have one of them. Somebody gave me one of those as a gift too. I don't have both of them, but it's like Secret Agent Skills or something. So those ones have stuff like how to steal a car, how to pick a lock, how to break into a house, like how, stuff like that. And those are pretty neat too. But it's
Yeah,
kind of
those
the
are,
same thing. It's good for reading when you're on the toilet.
that's it. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe this is a good, leave your phone on the charger and read a chapter, if you will, a chapter on one of these worst case scenario things that you may find yourself in. But today there were two in there that I felt that that one we've kind of touched on in the past, and two, they could potentially go hand in hand. And it was how to survive, or how to navigate without GPS, and how to survive if the grid goes down. And we've definitely touched on both of those. And obviously there is a kind of ability to link the skill gear conversation that we've had,
Yep.
skills trump gear. And that's kind of, where it went. So just to be clear, do I think that you should read this book and then think that you are prepared for any of these scenarios? No, I do not. Just want to make that disclaimer very clear. Like, don't read how to land an air. If you go out and you get this book, don't read the chapter on how to land an airplane and then be the first to be like, hey, I know how to do that. And if the pilot gets sick, was it Airplane 1 or 2? Which airplane movie was it?
I don't remember. They kind of run together.
Oh God.
To me.
Yeah. So the first part was obviously how to navigate without GPS. And we've talked about this, and there were a couple of things that I wanted to start with first. Like, so obviously in the first thing is they tell you to determine cardinal direction. It's the first step. And they talk about in the book, they say, study a topographical map of your area. And my first thought was, okay, well, what if I'm not in my area? Like what then? Right. So sure, you can apply some of this to your local area. And I think in your situation with your survival plan, that's probably something you've done. But
yeah, I mean, to that point, I do, I have, I went out of my way to purchase maps of this whole area. And if you're not familiar with maps come in all different scales. A smaller scale map is of a larger area. A larger scale map is a more detailed map of a smaller area. So I actually I got kind of the three different scales. I got the smaller scale, the larger scale, and the intermediate scale of this whole area around where I live. And you can, they're it's getting harder to find, and you kind of have to be a little bit educated on it because you have to know how to search map sets. Kind of like using the Dewey Decimal System almost. It's very similar to that. You have to know how to search like map sets, and then within the map sets to find the exact ones that you're looking for. But yeah, I've got those in a tube up in my bedroom.
Okay, so let me just go back to what you were saying. So it's getting harder to what? Find actual maps?
So I remember, I mean, not like it was a million years ago or anything, but I remember like being in my 20s, and you could go into places like REI, or on the East Coast there's a store called EMS, Eastern Mountain Sports, that they have on the East Coast. Like, you could go into those places and they would have like the file cabinet, and you could find topo maps like in a store. Now I can't think of any place that has them, that sells topographical maps. So now you have to, if you go to the U.S. Geological Survey's website, like their website, because it's a government website, it's really hard to navigate, especially if you already kind of don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And so yeah, finding online vendors that do good quality, up to date topographical maps, because again, I mean, if you think about where you live. I mean, think about how much that's changed in 10 years or whatever. So if you do find a topo map that's the last time it was updated was 1975, that may not do you a whole lot of good either. But it's getting harder to find vendors for good, up to date topo maps.
Yeah, and I always used to keep a road atlas in in my vehicle in the past. And I remember I used to love reading it too. Well,
Yep.
looking at it, reading it, whatever it is. But I used to love looking at that and using it and even planning out and with, with like a highlighter, like routes and whatnot.
So
Didn't
that's
we?
just quickly, like that's still a great resource. That's something that my dad taught me when I was 16. Always keep a road atlas in your car, and
Yeah.
it's buy one every year. It's like, I think my granddaddy used to like give them to people for Christmas every year, but
it's a great gift.
yeah, keep it in your car like always. It costs $20. Tuck it in a little pouch in the back of your seat and just leave it there.
Yeah. Didn't we run into an issue in Oklahoma where we needed a map and we had to go? We sent somebody out to buy one. I think we were able to.
Oh yeah,
find
that's
one.
right.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
used it, and because we used a map for
the FTX.
for that FTX. Yeah. So, but again, that makes sense for your local area. Go back to the episode we did about the plane crash. Okay, well, you have none of this surveying of a topographical map. I mean, I don't know, maybe there was one in the airplane, but again, I don't know that this is a worst case scenario handbook. So I think the worst case scenario is you are not in familiar territory and you do not have GPS. You may not even have a compass. So if we're going to really worst case scenario this.
Sorry. Growing pains.
We'll just throw an applause in.
Yeah.
So if we're going to worst case scenario this, then let's really make it the worst case scenario. So maybe it's here's an idea. Maybe we rewrite this book as the worst case scenario survival handbook and throw in what the actual situation should be. Like, you are driving, you lose your blinker fluid evaporates and your car goes off the road and your cell phone gets ejected from the car and you are stuck somewhere and now you have no GPS. What are you going to do?
Well, it's funny because like this is another one of those things like we've talked about with like processing an animal that you kill. Like, I mean, to some people, being out in the wilderness without a food source, like without a box of granola bars, that would be a worst case scenario. But if you know how to kill an animal or trap an animal and process it, then it's not. I mean, so this is another example, like navigating without GPS it's just the way it used to be. That's the way I drove when I was 18 years old. I drove from North Carolina to San Diego with no GPS because we didn't have it then. Now
a good point.
It's convenient that everybody has it now because you have it on your phone. But also, like, getting ejected from the vehicle or whatever and losing your phone or your phone breaking. If you're stranded somewhere, I mean, pretty much all GPS requires power. So if you lose battery, if you lose power, if you lose the ability to charge a battery or whatever, you're still going to be without GPS. And to me, because this is something I know how to do, this is not a worst case scenario. But one of the things, like flipping through the book, one of the things that it never really addresses is knowing cardinal directions and knowing which way is north, which way is south, east, west.
Right.
Doesn't do you a whole lot of good if you don't know where you are. Like that's like the number one rule in land navigation is you have to first determine where you are. And we talk about triangulation and things like that. There's things you can use to ascertain your location. And then you need to know which direction is which, because now I know I'm here and I want to go this way. So which direction do I need to travel? But if you don't know where you are and you don't know which direction help or escape or rescue or water or whatever, if you don't know where you are and you don't know where you need to go, then knowing which way is north isn't really going to help you that much anyway.
Right. I did find some of those, and we'll get to some of those, but I did find some of those things interesting. And I'm wondering how accurate some of those are. Obviously not so much the water flowing in the valley direction, but the one about the stuff in the city, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question is, determining where your location is. So obviously, determining what true north is or true south is, um, you know, watching the sun. Obviously, everybody knows that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, right? I mean, that's clear. Everybody can look to the north and find the North Star. Basic astronomy with the Big Dipper and whatnot. But they brought up some points in there about navigating with the moon and I think the stars, right? Or the stars.
Yeah, celestial navigation is, I mean, it was used mostly by sailors,
Right.
in the days of exploration when we didn't, not only do we not have GPS, but we didn't really have maps. So people were going into, uncharted areas or traveling, great distances. And celestial navigation goes back to determining where you are. Because if you're on a ship or, even now on an airplane, you can look at your compass and your compass can tell you you're going north. So you can maintain your heading and you're going north, but the wind is pushing you, even though you're pointed in the direction you intend to be pointed, you're not in contact with the ground. So the winds and the seas are going to push you off of your intended path. And so typically every night, sailors would use the celestial navigation to kind of recalibrate where they are and how they need to correct their course. But for most people, number one, celestial navigation is very, very difficult and takes many, many years to learn it well. And when you're doing land navigation, you're in contact with the ground, so you're not being like pushed off course by winds or seas, really.
Right.
So honestly, for most people, like I would like I don't even think when I first joined the Navy, they were still teaching celestial navigation a little bit. Now we don't even really teach it anymore. But I don't think that's something that's really ever been taught to the Army or the Marines because when you're land navigating, you don't really need it. And just so people know, like
Wow.
everybody knows the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So that's a good way to find a general direction during the day, but it does not work with the moon. The moon
No.
rises and sets at a different place in the sky every night. So you can't,
Right.
the moon does not rise in the east and set in the west, and you should not use the moon to navigate. So
No, but one of those, you're right. You should not use the moon to navigate. But one of those things that they were talking about, obviously, was what did they say? That something about the North Star or whatnot. I mean, but North Star is not true north, right?
no,
That's kind
and
of what they're referring to.
and it also that varies depending on what hemisphere on Earth you're in and things like that.
Right.
So
Yeah. And you just talked about obviously the weather and whatnot and the wind. But one of the other things that this has kind of always been talked about, and it's just something maybe you've heard it. I know that I've heard it. I'm pretty sure that you've heard it. Like obviously, if you're lost in the wilderness and you try and find a river, right, and you follow that river downstream, and eventually you will come to something. Or
yeah, that's one of the little rules of thumb that I heard when I think when I was a Boy Scout. Even I've heard it in the military too. But yeah, streams lead to creeks, creeks lead to rivers, rivers lead to people. Is the way I heard it. Yeah.
So that's obviously still a viable piece of information to use, and I believe they talked about the direction of rivers in it, but I don't feel like that's accurate.
It talked about like in North America, like all the major mountain ranges in North America kind of run north south. So like the Appalachian Mountains kind of run along a ridge line because of the way tectonic plates and glacial drift pushed the mountains up, and so
Sure.
the like the Pacific Crest Trail, I mean, generally runs north to south. It runs from Mexico to Canada. The Appalachian Trail runs basically north south in a north south orientation. So they were saying like most rivers in those areas of North America would tend to run east west, kind of because from those mountain ranges, the rivers are running, the water's running downhill basically. But that's a very, very generalized statement. And like the Mississippi River does not run east-west, so
exactly. That's what I was going to say.
runs
The
north.
Mississippi River runs north to south,
Right.
and it does. I think it does address that in the book. It doesn't say that it's not, absolute, but they did say that it was a suggestion.
And they talk about like the little things like moss grows on, this is another thing that I heard when I was a kid from my granddaddy, like moss only grows on north side of trees. Well, that's mostly true-ish in most places, but a lot of these things that are in the book to me are like they make sense to me, but they're kind of rules of thumb that can help you if you already kind of know what you're doing. Like these wouldn't be great things to follow absolutely if you didn't already
Yeah,
know what you were doing.
that's what I kind of find is a little bit unnerving. Like, and it's going to go back to that article that you sent me. Basically, someone is going to read this book and be like, "Oh, I'm good to go. I can survive without GPS because I'll just check the moss and I'm good. I know exactly where I am." It's just like,
Well,
no.
like one of the things from COVID that everybody kept repeating, correctly was don't mistake information for knowledge. They're two different things. I can Google search something real quick and get a piece of information, but that doesn't make me an expert and doesn't make me knowledgeable. And a lot of people conflate those two things nowadays.
Yeah, that's very true. Going back to some of those points that they threw in there, excuse me. They talked about the weather and obviously the wind blowing and whatnot. And again, loose interpretation of that. I kind of was interested and I would love to do some research to find out if this is true about the woodpecker situation.
Yeah, I've never
Like,
heard that one. That was new to me too.
Yeah, and so for those that are just kind of obviously that haven't gotten the book and read it in the last 31 minutes, let me just kind of be very clear about what it says with the woodpeckers. But let's see, where is it? It says listen for the woodpeckers, and then woodpeckers peck the majority of their holes on the south side of trees in the northern hemisphere. They also peck on the other sides, though less frequently. Check multiple trees before doing this. So it's
thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Like woodpeckers always do this, except sometimes they don't do this. So listen for them, but then check multiple trees to make sure that the information we just gave you is accurate. Because if it's not, we told you that it's not always accurate.
Your best bet is probably to kill and eat the woodpecker, and then just
there you go. Catch the woodpecker, kill it, eat it, and then be done with it. But again, like, where did they pull that information from? Right? Like, I'm hoping that if a book is published and it's been out for a long time, some of this is fact checked. Where are all those fact checkers from Facebook? They need to be on this book.
Or do they?
Or do they? Right. So that was kind of determining your location is the first step in this, right? I mean, I think that's clear, and kind of what you just said. Like, you have to figure out where you are before you start to move.
And there's a term that we use in land navigation. It's called handrails, which is basically like these things can be handrails. Like if I already know that I need to be moving east, instead of stopping to check my compass every 5 minutes to make sure I'm still going east, I can use these things as little guideposts to make sure that in general, I'm still moving in generally the right direction as I go. And like, if you have a map and you look at your map and you see like, this is a common thing where I'm from on the East Coast. Even if you're in kind of a wilderness area, kind of in the middle of nowhere, the state at some point cut these huge swaths through the forest to put power lines and power line poles. So if you come across one of those and it's going in about the same direction you are, even if it's not going exactly the right direction, but again, in general, in the right direction, you can use those like clear cut paths as like a handrail to keep you moving. And in those areas, you can probably move faster than you can like through a
Right.
wooded area. So even though it's taking you a little bit off course, it's helping you go a farther distance faster. So,
and those will usually lead to some kind of hub, right?
those power lines are going somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you brought up compass. So obviously, this next part, how to travel, having a compass is important. Do you have a compass on your, if you know how to use it, there you go. You have a compass on your phone. I believe that whether these things have cell service or not, the compass still works.
Yeah, if you turn your Wi-Fi and your cellular data and everything off, the compass will work. I would actually like to read more about that, because and maybe I'll read up on it and kind of close the loop on it in a future episode. But I would like to know, like, going into a complete loss of the grid. I mean, that there's obviously not a compass embedded in the phone. It's getting some signal from somewhere to calibrate it, because I don't know, on my older iPhone, there was like a little process you could go through to calibrate the compass. And on this newer one, I was actually playing with it before we started the podcast here today. And mine doesn't have the calibration feature anymore. So apparently it just stays calibrated all the time now. So that tells me it's getting something from somewhere. So maybe without Wi-Fi and without cellular data, the compass will still work. But if it was a complete loss of the grid, I don't know if it will. And also, just of note, I checked it also before we started today. The compass on your phone points true north and not magnetic north.
Okay.
So that comes into play as well.
So, but what I will kind of give it maybe a little bit of credit to determine if it works. If you do not have cell phone service, total loss of service, you're in a elevator or whatever, and all your bars are gone, your phone will pop up and say SOS. And I'm pretty sure that you can still dial emergency services even if you have no Wi-Fi, no cell service at all. I believe it still works like that. So maybe the compass is working off of whatever that network is. But again, something to test out.
Yeah.
Something to definitely try.
And I've talked about this before, but there's a lot of people don't know about this. There's a function of Google Earth where you have to, like, you can't download the entire Earth, to your phone, but you can go on Google Earth and outline, specific areas and download those maps to your phone, so that even if you don't have any sort of connectivity, you can still reference those maps. And then, like, I have this other app along with that. It's just called LandNav, and that app can use the maps that you downloaded to your phone with your phone's compass, and actually make your phone a fairly usable LandNav tool. But
okay, so this is a separate app is okay. Is it a paid app, free app? Not that it matters, but just
I've had it on my phone for so long, I can't remember if I paid for it or not. But it's called Land Navigation Assistant, designed for military personnel. But it's pretty good, and it can use, like, if you take the effort to go on Google Earth and actually download specific map sets that you want to reference, that app will work with those. But it's a pretty neat little tool.
Good. Okay, good to know. Anybody listening, there you go. Check out that app. Also, if you're listening, and if you have confirmed any of this stuff, like the stuff about the woodpecker or the compass working without service, let us know. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this, you can add comments to below. If you're watching this and you have not already liked and subscribed to the YouTube channel and click the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out, go ahead and do that now. If you're just listening to this on Spotify, drop us a comment and let us know if you've verified any of these things.
And also, like, I think I could be wrong about this, so somebody can point that out if I am, but it's kind of like what you and I talked about the other day, the difference between AI and a computer program just running the program and people referring to it as AI. We refer to our phone as GPS, but I don't actually think our cell phones have an actual GPS antenna. I think it's I think your phone just triangulates itself off of other cell phone towers. I don't think it's actually utilizing GPS. So that's another.
Do you mean like using the Maps app to get from here to, Boone, North Carolina?
Yeah, and like when I use my handheld Garmin GPS, it has a GPS antenna on it that does connect to the satellites in space
Got it.
and gives me my position based on those satellites. But your cell phone, I don't think does that. I think it just triangulates itself off of cell phone towers.
Cell towers. That's also something interesting to do. Maybe a little bit of follow up research on.
So like in a grid loss situation, like I've referenced this before too. Like if you start Chris's GPS company and partner with Elon or whoever and put some satellites up, there's a law or a federal regulation or whatever that there has to be a backdoor for basically for the government to take control of Chris's GPS service. So like the government can shut off commercial GPS at anytime they want to, anytime if there's some sort of national emergency or some big strategic military war going on or whatever, the government can deny civilian use of commercial GPSs. So.
And and you've discussed, we actually talked about that on a previous episode too, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, so even if you have a handheld GPS that does connect to satellites in certain situations, it may not work. And then I think if all satellite service, if all cellular service goes down, like down hard, I don't think the GPS functions of your phone are going to work because I'm pretty sure it works off of the cellular triangulation, not actually GPS satellites.
Yeah. Now, what are your thoughts on the whole point of obviously calculating time and distance? So we've talked about calculating your location, or maybe not calculating, but figuring out location. I mean, calculating time and distance, obviously it's important, but I mean, is it possible to, and I think time and distance kind of are one and the same here, right? So obviously,
so it's a triangle. It's distance, speed, and time. So if you want to solve for time, you need to know how far you're going at what speed, and you can get time. If you want to solve for what speed you need to go, you need to know the time or the distance you're going to go and the time constraint that you have, and it'll tell you what speed you need to go. And then to calculate distance, you need to know what speed you've gone for how long, and you can get distance. So it's a triangle, and each two legs will give you the answer to the third one. But yeah, that's a concept that you need to be familiar with. You need to be good at math. Like these are like I try to teach my daughter these things, like when she starts getting down on math and thinks that math is dumb and math is not important. I mean, I did that this morning. I did underwater navigation this morning on our scuba dive, doing calculating time, distance, and using my compass underwater to navigate us around this route and get us back to where we started, because like our visibility this morning, we can only see 15 feet visibility. So I can't really use any landmarks. I have to do everything off of my compass and then calculating those time, speed, and distance things that you're just talking about. But it is important, but it's most important. A quick story, like this was when I was doing my first pre-deployment training for my first deployment to Afghanistan in 2009. We did a block of workups in Mississippi, in the vast wilderness of like southern and central Mississippi. And one of the things we did, after training to it, but one of the things we did was we did a 4-day, 3-night continuous land navigation problem. I mean, it was like we must have walked 100 miles or so in 4 days. No, that's too much. It was probably somewhere around 50 miles. Because I want to say we covered, because it was like deep, vast, thick, like untouched by humans wilderness in central Mississippi. And we probably covered 12 to 15 miles a day, and it was 4 days. But anyway, we had to find exact points. So we had to plot these exact points on our maps and then go to these exact points. And we had to find them, and they were the points were all, somebody had put them out there, but they were like 1-inch diameter PVC pipes that were about maybe 2 feet tall, hammered into the ground. And so we had to navigate ourselves through this thick wilderness and find this little piece of white pipe sticking out of the ground, in this huge area. And it was basically, it basically walked us around in a circle, because once you found the first point, from there, then you had to go to the second one, onto the third one, and then you had to set up camp, and you had to set up a perimeter security, and because we're in the military and we have to pretend like we're playing war. But it was a 4-day long 50 plus mile land navigation problem, where we had to be very, very exact. But to my point, if you're in a survival situation, I don't really see any reason why you really need to be that exact if you're trying to self-rescue, or just kind of get from one area to the next, or just to um, find your way out of trouble.
Right.
I think knowing where you need to go and just moving in a general direction, and not being that exact, or having to be exact enough, because it's not like,
right. Finding a road is finding a road. It doesn't matter if you find mile marker 1 on the road, you found a road.
right. But like in the military, we need to like link up with other forces at an exact place at an exact time,
Right.
and hit an exact objective or whatever. But I think in a survival situation, I think as I'm talking, I'm trying to think of a reason why you would have to do that, and I can't really think of one.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, finding a town
Right.
is acceptable, except you don't need to find 231 Main Street. Like, just finding Main Street is good enough.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so obviously that is an important thing. So that I think that plays into, so take what you want away from this, right? I mean, and if you understand that triangle, and you understand math, great. If you don't, and after hearing how Jamie just explained that, if there's questions, seek out that information, seek out that knowledge, and learn that. I mean, that's all of the things that we're talking about can be addressed with acquiring information, acquiring training, and practicing all that. And I think that's a pretty fair point. Now, you have traveling, and you have traveling obviously in woods and whatnot, and different geographical areas will provide you with different challenges, I guess. And we just talked about how this works if you're prepared, meaning you're in your vehicle breaks down, whatever happens, apocalypse has kicked off, and you have your get home bag and you're prepared with your gear. But how do you prepare for that without any gear? And again, we kind of went over some of that with no compass, no pen, nothing to write on. How do you do those math equations without the stuff to do it?
Yeah.
I think it's obviously knowing how to use a compass is important, but then knowing how to find general direction without it is probably more important. I don't have a compass on me right now.
Well, they're like one of my favorite things to do, because it's a neat little trick. It's a neat thing to show to a kid. And it uses like you can do anything. You basically just need 3 sticks. And you need a clear little area, and it needs to be like in fairly direct sunlight, as long as there's enough sunlight to cast a shadow. You need 1 stick, and it doesn't have to be tall. It just needs to be like 3 or 4 inches tall and fairly straight. Stick it in the ground where it's sticking straight up out of the ground, and wherever it casts the shadow, mark the tip of the shadow that the stick has cast. And then you wait like 15, 20, 30 minutes. Like the longer you wait, the more accurate it'll be. But like typically rule of thumb is like 15 to 20 minutes. And then the shadow is going to move because of the movement of the sun. And then you mark the tip of the shadow again. So you've got your first mark, you've got your second mark. That first mark is west, that second mark is east. And so you can draw a line between that gives you a perfect like east-west line. And then once you have that line 90 degrees off, that gives you a north-south line. And you don't need anything for that. You can probably most places on Earth you can find a stick and 2 little pebbles or whatever. But
Right.
that's a cool little thing to know. It's a cool little trick to know, and it's a fun thing to like show to kids and stuff like that. And it's a cool little thing to keep in the back of your mind. But
Yeah, and it can be used in a situation where you don't have the things that
yep.
you need. And I lived in South Florida for quite a bit of time, and they have the grid system down there. Everything is north, south, east, and west. There is no northwest, southwest. And then, coming back up here to the northeast, and you're in this rural area, it's just you don't have that. And obviously it's really easy to navigate in South Florida. If you go east and continue, you're going to hit the ocean. You
Well,
go
and
west.
one of the things going back to the book, kind of in line with the woodpecker holes, it says older Christian churches were constructed in a north-south orientation with naves running east-west. That's something I never knew. I didn't read that either. So
Right.
that's pretty interesting.
And I would love to find out about that. Like,
Yeah.
The obviously the north and the south valleys and whatnot. What was the other thing about, the churches, the old buildings, we talked about, the moss. There was something else about the trees and
it says, in the northern hemisphere, which if you're in the United States, you're in the northern hemisphere, all satellite dishes point south.
Yeah. So that one. And then the other one was something about the trees, right? It was, what was that? Let me see.
The moss is always grows on the north side of trees.
Oh no. It was check the edges of lakes, frozen snow covered lakes will display sastrugi, wind driven ridges from west to east. Again. Oh, right there it is. Check the base of trees or poles. The snow at the base of a tree or a pole will display a crescent shape on the south side of the tree/pole, the result of melt from the retained heat of the sun.
I have heard that before.
Yeah. So, like, again, I'm glad that you've heard that, because that's something you sit there and you read and you're like, is this real? Is this true? And turns out it is.
Well, I don't know if it's true. I'm just saying I've heard that one before.
You've just heard it. All right. Anybody that's in the north half of the United States that deals with snow, we're going to need you to verify that come December when we get snow-ish, whenever that is. So this that leads us obviously up to a no GPS situation, right? And you're out there, you're stuck, and whatever the case may be, where you do not have GPS. But there's another, I guess there's a flip side to that coin, right? That's, you don't have a grid. And I'm not sure if we go into that for this one, or we make this kind of a part two. I mean, what do you think? Like, we've covered a lot of information, and I got to say that I did not think that we would. And the reason I kind of linked these two together is because, the topic of navigating without GPS was 3 pages in this book.
Yeah.
But we've been able to really kind of dig down a little bit on some of this stuff and discuss it in length, and kind of look at it from somebody who's experienced with land nav. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, I can answer a couple of things. Like, number one, I mean, we could do, like the times I've actually learned like land nav in the military, like in a actual classroom and lab setting, like you learn it in the classroom, then you go out and you do like just a small, like 1-day field problem. Then you come back in the classroom and you learn about plotting on the map, and then you go out and you do that out in the lab and whatever. I mean, but these are things that take several days and lots and lots and lots of actual practical application and practice to actually learn. So yeah, we could go on all day nerding out about land nav, but if you want to move on to the grid question, like I read through and keep it pertinent to the book, because there's really not, this is 2 pages for how to survive a grid collapse, which we've had more, like, I think some of the conversations that we've already had
pertaining to this has been longer than that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah. I was just going to make one point about it. We can read through the bullet points that it gives, but the thing that like I just kind of fundamentally disagree with the way it paints the grid collapse thing, because basically this book implies that if there's a complete collapse of the grid, or power grid is specifically what they're meaning, is that like your number one objective should be finding your way back to a place that has power. And like I fundamentally disagree with that, because urban centers and places where there are lots of people, where there's maybe likely to get power restored, or maybe they still have it, or a place where you could find a generator or something like that. Those are the places where I want to stay away from, because I want to stay away from those big population centers, and I want to stay away from those big clusters of people, because that's going to be way more dangerous than not having power. I'm
right.
okay with not having power. I'm not okay with being in the middle of a complete chaos of an urban environment where people are just losing their minds.
Right. So what they refer to this as obviously a true black sky event, and they say that it can result in 75% or more of the nation's transformers to be destroyed. So there's a couple of things to kind of unwrap here, right? One, is it a natural occurrence that has destroyed these grids and these transformers, or is it something man-made? So I think the best kind of course of action here is to, and I'm going to refer back to one of our old episodes, but I think the best course of action is to really take this and kind of break down a lot of the things that they referred to there, because that's not something that they address in these 3 pages or
Right.
whatever. Of it's like, okay, I think they said something about natural or a targeted attack. Okay, you should probably elaborate 17 pages on the targeted attack, because again, the worst case scenario is that.
Yeah,
right?
we talked about it in I think it was in the modern survivalist podcast episode. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that is pretty much the primary factor in my decision making of my it was activating your
Right.
activating your survival plan. That's what it was.
Yep.
But that is like the primary factor in my decision making is, did the power go down or was the power taken down? Because
right.
the answer to that question is going to lead me in 2 completely different directions.
Right. So again, I guess I'm going to disagree with the books.
Yeah. I agree with your disagreement.
Thank you. And I don't necessarily disagree with the GPS portion of it, because I think there are some pieces in there that you can use. Like you said, maybe there's some of that stuff that works if you already know what you're doing. But the things that they put out about this, surviving a grid going down, I don't think it works for anybody who doesn't know what they're doing, and it definitely doesn't work for anybody that knows what they're doing. Like you said, like I said, I mean, first, if I'm going to determine if this was an attack, and if it's an attack, then we're definitely not going anywhere where there's a lot of people. We're staying away from all that. One of the things. Go ahead.
The other aspect to it being an attack is, and nobody wants to. Everybody like kind of feels uncomfortable like phrasing it this way, but like this could also be like a mass manipulation, where it's not necessarily like a foreign enemy attacking us, but like almost like a martial law situation where the city or state or federal government deliberately cuts power because they want to manipulate people into staying in, because so many people now are reliant on electrical power, electrical appliances, electronic devices, and all that stuff. Well, if we cut power, everybody will stay indoors and nobody will go out, nobody will go anywhere. So again, I just wanted to point, that's a little bit different than us being attacked by somebody as well. Like,
right. So again, a lot of those points are, I mean, if you read this book and you get to this chapter, please do not take this as a Bible and go out and wear it as a badge of honor. One of the things that they did mention, and I will agree with this, is they did talk about ham radios, and that how it's going to be an essential piece of communication, and probably gathering information on a nationwide level. And you know as well as I do that there is a large group of ZERT members that they check in every week and they try and connect with people across the country because it is so important. So I will stress again the importance of ham radios and getting involved with that if you are not already.
I did recently hear something that because like interest or participation or somebody's perception of relevance or whatever, that ham radio towers and repeaters are no longer going to be publicly funded anymore. They're removing
Really?
all like government and public funding. So now, if people want to maintain ham towers and repeaters, it's going to have to be privately funded, or they're just going to just fall into disrepair.
Wow. That's concerning.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting. I mean, why would the government do something like that? I don't know. Weird, awkward. And then they go on, the book goes on to talking about gathering supplies and, again, I think that the point to take away from this is how long is this situation occurring? Going back to your point, has it gone down or is it taken down? Is it taken down by us? Is it taken down by somebody else in a destructive manner? Right. And that brings us to that kind of shit hits the fan situation, apocalypse type situation. But you can make this a 4-hour episode on just all of those factors.
Yeah.
The book goes on to talk about gathering supplies. Well, we've talked about this before. If you need to start gathering supplies when it's time to gather supplies, you're already failing, right? Like you shouldn't really have to gather much if you're in this preparedness survivalist lifestyle. If this goes down, you're like, oh, sweet, I can finally, bust open some of those cans of clam chowder in the basement. You're not going out looking for it. One of the things that I did like is, and I didn't think about it, and maybe you have, I'm sure you probably have, but having a bicycle.
Yeah.
Like,
for several years, I dated a girl that lived in Los Angeles, and she lived like right in the middle of Los Angeles, like right, like not in down. She lived in Hollywood, but this is something that she and I always talked about, and I think we've vaguely referenced it before. Is like if you have loved ones and there's a physical distance between you and these people that are important to you, do you have a plan for how to link up if all communication has been severed? But again, like with an eye towards I think she was mainly asking in the vein of natural disasters, but for man-made events as well. Um, she would always say, like, what would be my best way to get out of the city? I mean, Los Angeles is probably the largest city on the west coast of North America. So if there was some major catastrophic event, what's the best way to get out? And like a motorcycle is what I told, like a moped or a dirt bike or whatever.
right.
But yeah,
Yep.
but a bicycle is good for that too. But a bicycle's load capacity is limited by your physical capacity. So
True. But now they do have those, and this was the piece that I kind of put in there. They have those electric bicycles now with the battery. So, and I believe you can operate those as a regular bicycle, but then they all are also fully electric or maybe power assisted. I don't know. That would be something to do a little bit more research on to find out, because that's something that's interesting.
I agree.
One of the other things is, and I think, I don't know if you and I joke about this or Dan and I have joked about this, but, like I have an analog everyday carry pistol, and then I have a digital pistol, which obviously it's, just having a red dot and whatnot on it. But, having supplies that are analog versus digital in a time when the grid is down, I think is important, right? So, having a we talked about having an atlas or having a map, having a mechanical compass, having a portable light with batteries instead of something that it needs recharging. If you're like me, I know I've got, this 72-hour pack of batteries in both AAA and AA. And then I have a bunch of the Surefire batteries, whatever those are, the
CR123.
CR123s.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of those on standby. That's a better option than having a rechargeable one where you need to plug into a wall, in my opinion. They do now, they make these, obviously the battery packs now. They make some of those and they're great. They have multiple charger styles that are built into it. On the backside, they have a solar panel. So I'm assuming you can get some charge from that. The one thing I'm going to kind of raise a question about when it comes to solar is your Garmin solar?
This one?
Yeah.
No, this one is not.
Okay. So this one is. I can't say that it's ever actually charged it to the point where I don't need to charge it, right? Like, I don't know how much that solar panel charging thing works. Something to test out.
I had a little solar panel. It was made by either Snow Peak or Brunton, if I'm pronouncing that right. But it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it was maybe the size of, if you took a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and folded it like in half, is about that size.
Okay.
But it's a little solar panel that you could charge your phone with. And like my iPhone, it wouldn't charge it all the way. It would it would charge it up to about 80% and like kind of reach, what do they call it? Like stasis, like the amount of power that the phone was using was matching the amount of power coming in by the solar panel. So it wouldn't take it to 100, but it would get it to about 80. So
okay.
I don't know about the little, whatever the solar panel is built into the face of your watch.
Yeah. Who knows how that is? I mean, I think it's a great gimmick, and, Garmin, let us know if you're watching. Plus also release a new watch soon. Anyway, the other thing, and kind of as we wrap this thing up, the military base piece was kind of interesting to me. And first off, if you're listening, if you're watching this, do you know where the closest military base is that's to you? I mean, I'm sure if you live in an area, like in Georgia, you may know where Benning is. And if you're in North Carolina, maybe you know where Bragg is. But, I think you might know, just a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'm going to find out in just a little while.
But that's important. And I mean, I don't know if you can talk about it or not, but are there protocols in place where if a situation happens, and the public wants to get to the base for safety and security? Is that a thing?
I mean, there may be a folder somewhere that's in a briefcase somewhere that's in a safe somewhere that has contingency plan 12 Bravo that's for it, but it's not something that we're familiar with, that we train on. I mean, that may be like a FEMA thing, or but that is not something that I've ever trained for at all. That was another thing I was kind of skeptical about, because I mean, the point the book is making by telling people to try to make their way to the nearest military base is because that's a place that's likely to have redundant power sources and generators, and
right.
And if the power grid is restored, it will be restored to places like military bases and places like that first. But I don't know how good of an idea that is. I can just tell you that is not something that's ever been talked about or trained on my entire time in the military.
Right. Like it's, maybe know where it is, but I wouldn't show up there with your rifle slung being like, hey, I'm here to survive. And again, I think that goes back to, what is the situation that brought us here? Obviously if it's an attack, then the military, National Guard, whatever, may be activated and taking control of areas based off of whatever that grid going down situation looks like. I think, when I brought this idea to you to kind of take a look at this book and read them and maybe make it a series, I still think it's something that we can do, and we can kind of explore whether it's a satire piece or not. But I think what what we do is look at these and basically give them I agree with the book, or I think that no, don't do this. The things that we kind of talked about today and looked at today, I feel like we put out some good information, and we were able to look at some of it. Some of it's interesting. Some of it I would love to actually go take a look at. I'm going to go listen for some woodpeckers later, and I'm going to go.
I don't even think we have woodpeckers, so I can't help you with that one.
No woodpeckers in California.
No, not in this part.
How about? Yeah, I'm going to go search for some old churches and look at that. We do have some old churches around here, but I think there's, whether this book has been written for a survival situation or not, is left kind of up to make your own decision. If you decide to read the book, if you decide to go out and get it, again, it's not, I don't think it's $20, and it's a good read while you're on the toilet or having a drinking game, maybe. I don't know. But what I kind of want to do is wrap it up to the piece that you sent me, and leave our viewers and our listeners with kind of wrap it up with that story that you sent me, and people can make their own determination.
Yeah, you want me to hit it?
Yeah.
So this was sent to me by one of my friends, and then I sent it over to you. It's a story about a family of 3 was found dead of exposure after they made the decision to live off grid without proper knowledge, but apparently they had relied solely on survival handbooks with a bad result. They were unprepared, unpracticed, and unable to function in a hardship situation that ended up costing them their lives. Their camp had an unfinished lean-to, which they were incompetent to complete construction. They were found with 3 emaciated bodies. They were found by a hiker, and they had died of exposure, then starvation. And it says, and then the news headline says 3 decomposed bodies were found earlier this month in a remote Colorado campsite, having been identified as 2 sisters and a teenage son from Colorado Springs who sought to live off the grid. A hiker came across the bodies in the Gunnison National Forest, located about 100 miles west of Colorado Springs, on July 9th. Gunnison County coroner said that the trio appeared to have arrived in early summer and were going to attempt to stay through the winter, knowing only what they
recent?
learned.
This July? Oh, wow. So that's a recent piece of news that, hey, that might even be another whole episode there to talk about. So here's how we'll wrap this up today. And we're going to bring it back to some of the stuff we've talked about in the past. They trusted a book to survive. They didn't vet their instructor at the end of the day. If you're out there looking for training, if you're out there gaining knowledge on being a prepared individual and a survivalist, make sure you're getting good information. Make sure you're using a good instructor when it comes to learning firearms, learning medical, learning survival skills. Do not get your run-of-the-mill whoever that just is regurgitating some information, because it's crucial. It's crucial. Do not vet your instructors, vet your whatever training piece of information that you're using, make sure it's a viable source. Because you do not want to go say, yep, I'm good, I can do this. And then you wind up in that type of situation. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a term They can be used for just about anything. It's you know just enough to be dangerous, and so don't be the person that knows just enough to be dangerous.
Right. It's very, very, very true. Well, we can wrap today's episode up. Well, first of all, let me ask you, what do you think of this platform, the whole seeing and hearing? You liking it?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like kind of with teaching classes, I'll teach anything that people want to sign up for. So if people want to watch, then yeah, I'm down for it. This is neat.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the analytics look like here. This is obviously week 2 of this.
Yep.
You know, when I did this with Sean, he said, you know, if you're going to continue doing it, obviously, you know, just figure out ways to always make it better. I know, obviously, just from yesterday till today, we have a different background up. You have a different background up. Those are great power tools behind you, sir. It's very nice. I think that's a DeWalt. That's a Ryobi over there. I don't know how any of that works. I did ask Sean about YouTube, and you know, like, do they flag for podcasts? I don't know, but it's going to be fun. And I think this is going to open up an opportunity for us to do different things, talk about different things. So if you're just hearing this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to, know that it's also up on our YouTube channel, which is, I think, just ZERT Nation. So if you do want to see what we're talking about, and especially if we, you know, like, we held up the book on today's episode so people could kind of see it. So again, you can find us over there. And until next time, you guys stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon. Jamie?
It's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart. Get training.
All right. We'll talk to you later, guys.